Today on Knights of Last Call, we cover Pathfinder 2nd Edition combat and tactics, tips and tricks for your next battle. Welcome to the Nightlife. My name is Derek Melinda, the Game Master for the Knights of Last Call. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the crunchy mechanics of Pathfinder 2nd Edition and how some simple tips and some more complex tactics can really help you win your group's next battle. The fact is, for most role-playing games, combat is a big part of the game. And whether you're playing an adventure path or a homemade adventure, chances are pretty good that you are going to be getting into some combats and some fights. But Pathfinder 2nd Edition brings to the game a whole new set of challenges and opportunities that you can uniquely exploit by taking advantage of some of its unique characteristics. Now, Bob, you've been playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition now for about a year. You play a melee character.
Oh, yeah.
So, generally speaking, what are your thoughts when you think combat and tactics? What are you thinking?
So usually I just charge in and smash. But
it's usually good.
Yeah, it's usually good. The one thing I try to focus on, especially lately at the beginning, just coming in from 5e, coming in, I thought I was just going to keep hitting. But realistically, now that I'm at 8th level, I've been playing this a little bit, trying to gain the advantage in terms of the number of games. So getting buffs on me or debuffs on them, flanking, etc. I want to get as many opportunities to increase my first hit and do as much damage as I can.
Now, Matt, you're kind of the other side of the coin. You are a spellcaster. But you have played melee characters in past editions of the game.
Yeah. So from my perspective, my first big thing is I'm going to cast a spell, and it's going to take 2 actions. But after that, a thing that I like to do a lot is to try to help increase my allies' ability to hit, or decrease my enemy's ability to hit. Because usually I can do that with an aid or some kind of action that's just one. I can't flank. I can't get into combat.
I mean, physically you could.
I could. It's not going to end well. No. But I could, so I try to do things like do an aid with a cantrip or something just to give a bonus where I can.
That's right. And, Matt went straight into our first tip of the day. And to help us today, we've set up a little bit of a
we got a live action.
We got a combat grid here. And that is tip number 1 is flank. Whenever possible, flank. If you're a melee character and you are attacking and you are not on the flank, you're doing something wrong. So if possible, whenever possible, flank. And for those of you who don't know, flanking makes the enemy flat-footed. So what does flanking look like? Well, here we have our little enemy, and we've got Escanor, our champion of Iomede, and we've got Azius. So Azius is over here, and they're each fighting their own horrible, terrible mutant goblin.
And Burl is nowhere to be found.
Yeah, Burl wouldn't be anywhere near this.
Perfect.
So one of the things that you need to realize is that flanking is going to give you a huge benefit because it makes the enemy flat-footed. So you need to think about it in terms of, all right, what is this costing me? Well, one of the biggest changes between 2nd edition Pathfinder and pretty much every other game that's come before it, 3rd edition, 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder 1, everything used to have attacks of opportunity. Everything. Every monster did. And that meant if you basically moved, more or less, you were going to get an attack of opportunity. And someone's just going to get a free swing at you. But in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, most monsters do not have attack of opportunity. Most PCs don't have attack of opportunity. And that means more or less, unless you're pretty confident that the enemy has attack of opportunity because they're like a soldier fighter type, or because they've demonstrated that they have it, the fact is, you can move around in combat pretty freely. And the game designers did this deliberately. They said this in their beta. They said this in their release. They wanted to reduce attacks of opportunity because they wanted players to not feel disincentivized to go move around the battlefield. They wanted to create a more dynamic environment. And nothing is more dynamic than moving. If you're like me, you've played a lot of other games of Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder 1st Edition, there was a lot of just 2 people coming together and just swinging at each other until one died. Right.
Hate it.
So Pathfinder 2nd Edition rewards you by flanking. So what does flanking look like? Well, flanking simply means that Azius here moves to be directly opposite from a foe. And that is going to make that foe flat-footed, giving it a -2 penalty to its armor class, not just to Azius's attacks, but also to his ally, Escanor, here on the other side as well. So that can be hugely beneficial because when you are fighting an enemy, you want its armor class to be as low as possible. It's going to give you the best chance to hit. It's going to give you the best chance to crit. And a -2 doesn't sound like a lot to armor class, but remember, Pathfinder 2nd Edition has a unique mechanic for determining critical hits. It's not just 20. If you hit by 10 or more, you also land a critical hit. And that means that if you need a 20 to get a critical hit, because let's say you need to roll an 11 to score a normal hit and a 20 to get a crit, if you flank the creature, its AC drops by 2 points, which means you now hit it. You now hit it on a 9 or an 8. And that means that you now crit on an 18, 19, or 20. So you went from having a 5% chance of a critical, just rolling a 20, to a 15% chance of a critical. That's a triple. You tripled your critical chance.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how valuable is it to worry about, like when we think of multiple attacks per round as a melee character? I admit I'm not a melee character.
Sure.
But when you have multiple attacks and you get a penalty, you get a -5, you get a -10.
Yeah.
How much does that matter versus not wasting, but using one of my first couple of actions to instead get in place?
Yeah. So that's a great
flank.
Yeah. So that's a great question, Matt, because I think a lot of this comes, and we'll talk about this in our third tip, but a lot of this comes down to the type of monsters that you're facing. Okay. If you're fighting just a handful of foes, okay, like let's say that you have 4 members in your party, like we do here, like our Knights of Last Call.
The Knights of Last Call.
And they're fighting 2 enemies here. Chances are pretty good that those enemies are higher level than you, or even about your same level, which means that their defenses, their armor class is going to be pretty high, and you're going to want to get in hits. And the choice that you really have to make is it better to make 2 attacks with no sort of bonus or penalty, or sorry, no bonus, or is it better to make 1 attack with your best possible choice? And I think that the math really works out that it's better for you to make that 1 good attack. So
especially if you can critical, that's really what you're trying to do.
Yes. They call it
give me the best crit chance I can.
Right. So like in this example, to Matt's point here, let me move this guy back a little bit. We've got this monster here, and Escanor, our paladin, has engaged him. And now our barbarian has a choice, right? He can either move once and then attack twice, once with a -0, just normal attack, and then once with a -5 penalty. But maybe it works out that his speed is such. Obviously, if he had enough movement, he would just move here, which is a reason to have good movement. But if he had an option to maybe move twice, once, twice, and then make 1 attack, well, that might actually be the better play. Because remember, this creature is, probably higher level or same level as you. Its armor class is probably pretty good. You're actually probably going to do more damage if you can lower its armor class by making it flat-footed through the flank, but you've also aided your ally.
I think that's the big point.
And now his attacks or her attacks are going to be that much stronger. Now this enemy's in a rough spot, because if the enemy wants to do anything to defeat this position, it's going to have to spend actions to move away or to step and then move away. And the enemy, you're outnumbering him.
Oh, yeah.
His actions are a premium. So if he ends up burning some actions just to get away from this situation, that could be a huge advantage.
Absolutely.
So, flanking is absolutely important. And, I think another key thing here is understanding what flanking is. We said this before, but a medium creature like this, you can flank a creature when you are on opposite sides of it. And that means exactly opposite.
Correct.
So in this situation, these 2 characters are flanking the monster. But if the paladin was here, this is not a flank. If the paladin was here, this is not a flank. Only by being on the opposite corners or on opposite faces are you flanking.
Correct.
Now this changes a little bit when we move to a bigger creature. Let's say this Big Daddy Troll here. And now suddenly the face of the creature takes up 2 squares.
Correct.
So that means that Asius on this right flank can actually flank with both of his allies, because now these 2 people look across the troll and they see that they see their ally. So all 3 of these characters are flanking.
Correct. And we talked about this earlier where, you can't.
Yeah.
This is not a flank. And I know this happens a lot when I GM for my new players. They think that flanking is a distraction. So I'm distracting from their side. So therefore, I'm also distracting from this side. It's not the case.
Yeah. And this can be confusing, because if you've come from 5th edition, the rogue gets to sneak attack basically in this situation.
Maybe that's where they're getting confused from.
The rogue gets to sneak attack whenever you're in melee with your buds. And that is not the case in Pathfinder.
Which makes sense to me, though, because the idea of flanking is that you are distracted because you're fighting 2 of us. So whether I am 90 degrees or 180 degrees from my partner, it really doesn't matter. You were distracted trying to.
It would just be broken.
I mean, probably.
I mean, it's partially a game element, and that's definitely the case.
I mean, it's an abstract nature of it. You have to come with some abstract. Like in this example here, if you rotate onto the corners for some reason, so like if you go there and there, for some reason now the monster is more agile. Like the monster is better at defending because it's rotated, a few degrees, which makes no sense.
Yeah, but that is the rule.
It is the abstract rule of trying to make a real life fight into a
right. Because remember too, also we are making some broad assumptions here, right? Like our minis aren't moving and dancing around. Like we assume
we're taking turn-based,
and it's not. Yeah, it's not turn-based. It's all happening simultaneously.
Yeah, this is all happening simultaneously. So it's an abstraction.
You have to pick somewhere between. And say that's where the rules are.
Exactly.
But if we were facing this guy in a medium, maybe a medium creature like our buddy here, if Gwildor wanted to flank.
Yeah.
He would need an extra ally to come in.
Because this guy only has one square of space and you're flanking with Escanor here. There's no way that Gwildor can possibly flank him unless another character comes in.
Correct.
So when you're fighting a big creature like that, realize that you only need 3 characters to flank it as opposed to 4. And this is also true, by the way, if you get an enlarged spell cast on you or you're a giant barbarian. So this is Lucky. This is Burl's dire badger companion. So Lucky here fighting the same crazy evil goblin. Well, Lucky occupies this square. Lucky occupies this square and this square.
So both.
Yes. So that means Azias right now is flanking because, I'm sorry. Azias here is flanking. But Escanor is also flanking here.
Yep.
Because he diagonally, it's a square occupied by Lucky. So this square and this square go through opposite corners and they're flanked. This square and this square go through opposite sides, so he's flanked.
Yeah,
but it would not be if he moved to the other side of Azias.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. No,
that's correct. No, this is not a flank because you're flanking this square and nobody's there. Yeah. So again, it's easy, it's simple. Use your move actions to flank. And, I think a lot of the theme of today is going to be use your move actions.
Yeah.
So another simple one that is very, very, very easy is move to deny your enemy attacks.
Okay.
Defensive moving.
Defensive movement. So the simplest and easiest way of looking at this is, let's say that the group is fighting against, some big bad creature.
Oh, that's all right.
What in the world? It's like a troll?
Yeah, it's some sort of troll.
Got big hands.
Look at those teeth.
Okay. So they're fighting against this big, bad creature. Now, here's the thing. Your group has a bunch of actions. This troll has 3.
Yep.
So, and it's 1v4. So hopefully, either the troll is weak, in which case you have nothing to worry about, or the troll is really strong and you should be worried about. So think about it. Not only is his first attack going to hit, his second attack is going to hit, his third attack might hit. So each one of his actions are just super, super valuable. Now, if the creature doesn't have attack of opportunity, well, it's pretty simple. What if I just move back? I attack. Maybe I attack him twice. And then I just move back.
Yeah.
The idea is that you're trading one of your actions for one of his.
Correct.
And you have us as a group, we have 12.
Correct.
And he has 3. So if you could ever trade 1-to-1, do it every time.
If you could trade 1 for 1, you do it every time.
3 times.
If you did it 3 times, he wouldn't get to go.
Right.
He would do nothing.
So it's a little different in this scenario because he's large, but in a medium creature, all you really have to do is stay 5 feet ahead of him.
Yeah, not just because he's large doesn't mean he has reach. So,
that's true.
Okay. So yeah, you could just step.
Correct.
Right. And that would accomplish the same thing.
Yes.
Because now he has to,
he has to waste an action.
He has to use a third of his entire team's turn.
He has to use a third of his entire turn because if he's bigger and stronger and, than you, then what he wants you to do is to stand there.
Because then, he doesn't have to worry about
He doesn't have to do anything.
He can use all his actions to do damage.
He can use his first action to intimidate you, lowering your armor class even more, and then make an attack and then make another attack, right? Whereas if you move back, basically you have, just by moving, basically turned his turn from 3 actions to 2 actions. Now,
by spending 1/12 of your team's
actions. Spending one of your actions, but yes, 1/12 of your team's actions. It's a huge trade economy. Yeah. And that movement as a denial gets even more powerful if you're faster.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Then it's like your what is it, scouting or
kiting?
Kiting. That's
yeah. So, for example, let's say that we've got this mean little goblin here, and his speed is, we'll just make it easy, 20 feet, and then we've got this fast barbarian.
Somehow.
Well,
He took fast movement and he's raging.
Yeah, he took fast movement and he's raging. So this goblin speed is, we'll say 20 feet, and we'll say that the barbarian speed is 35.
Sweet.
Is that what your speed is?
Yeah, it is right now.
Okay, 35.
When I'm raging.
So the barbarian goes, I'm going to attack this guy once. Why not? I'll attack him twice. Maybe I'll do something else, but I'll attack him twice. Then when I'm done, I'm going to move 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35.
No fear of attack of opportunity because it's not as common here.
It's not as common. And again, some of these things change if the creature does have an attack of opportunity. But now the creature goes, well, I want to attack this barbarian. All right, well, I'm going to go get him. So I'm going to spend my first action to move. 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, well, I'm still not there. All right, let me spend another action. 5, 10, 15. Okay, now I'm here, and now I'm going to attack you once.
Yeah.
Well, if you play that out over and over and over again, you would be attacking him twice a turn.
Yep.
And then moving, and then he would be moving twice and attacking you once.
Yeah, if you could do 1 for 2, that's incredible.
You are attacking him twice for each one attack that he is doing to you. It's like you're getting your second attack for free.
Yeah, that only just gets even larger when you have multiple party members engaging.
Yeah, no game is this simple because, there's complex factors, there's walls. We're playing on this kind of
bad guy.
This is just a tip.
This is just a tip. But if you have the speed, use it.
Yep.
If you can deny your enemy's actions, use it. And both of these examples that we've given, both flanking and sort of moving to deny your enemy actions, really talk into the heart of the action economy of the game. And, this gets talked about a lot, but what it really means is your party, typically 4 party members, has 12 actions, 3 from each of you. When you are fighting monsters, assuming that your GM is creating a sort of a balanced, fair, challenging encounter for you, you're going to be fighting a number of monsters. Well, if you're fighting higher level foes, tougher foes, then in order to keep the game fair and balanced, there has to be less of them.
Or you lose.
Or it's just really tough and you lose.
And most APs are designed to be balanced.
And most adventures and things, you want to give the party members a fighting chance. If it's just a strict sandbox game, maybe you never know. You're fighting 5 level 20s or something. But but in this situation here, we've got 2 foes that are probably more powerful than us, or at least pretty tough. But we outnumber them 2 to 1. And that means we have 12 actions and they have 6. So it is in our interest to make them waste actions, even if it means wasting actions ourselves.
Because every one we sacrifice is a 2 for 1 already. And if we can do something insane like you showed with just the running thing where it's a 2 for 1, that becomes a 4 for 1.
Correct.
And then it's
And so we'll talk about some of these tips, in some of our later segments, but anything that you can do in order to sort of maximize what you're doing in this situation is hugely beneficial. And so whether it's giving up, one of your actions so that you can get a flank, or whether it's using a movement so that the monster has to move and spend one of its actions, the fact is their actions are more precious and valuable than yours. Because as a group, there's 4 of you with 12, and there's only 2 of them with 6. If each party member could sacrifice an action to make the monster lose an action, the party would still have 8 actions and they would only have 2.
And you're in better position.
And
you've got the upper hand.
Right. Also, remember, the fewer monsters, the harder it is for them to flank.
That's right. Right.
Because in this scenario, there's 2 monsters. So at most, only 1 party member could ever be flanked.
That's a good point.
Right.
Hopefully not Burrow.
And the ultimate of this is if you fight something that's, by itself, a single monster, it can never flank.
There you go.
Right. And we just talked about how powerful flanking is. And, this monster doesn't get that ability. And that's something also too to consider when we talk about action economy. Sometimes the shoe is on the other foot. Sometimes you might be fighting a big gang of lower level creatures that, there's a bunch of them. And now suddenly, here we got 6 monsters, 5 bugbears and their pet wolf. And they have 6 members of their group. That's 18 actions. The party has 12.
Yeah, so now if we try to do one-on-one sacrifice, you're
going to lose. Yeah. So you got to change your tactics.
That's right.
But the good news is when there's more monsters, they're probably lower level than you. And so now things like making a second attack or a third attack, or a big fireball or lightning bolt AoE, area of effect spell, become way better options.
Yes.
Because now, rather than trying to worry as much about setting up the flank, right? Your barbarian might be more interested in making as many attacks as possible.
Because you could just knock the guy out.
I might be able to kill one.
You might be able to
swing.
just kill one in a single swing, and this is where your class abilities really factor in. As a barbarian, Azius, Bob's barbarian, he can't be flanked by creatures that are lower level than him because he's got deny advantage. He's got like eyes in the back of his head. And so him kind of getting into the mix of it isn't as threatening for him as it would be. This is part of what makes your characters cool is, the games tell you this is a horrible idea, it's bad, and then you go, not for me. And
I've been trained.
You feel like a badass. But when the shoe is on the other foot, you need to be thinking about, okay, we only have 12 actions. How do I make each one count for the most? This is not a time to be, spending 2 actions to do 1 attack. This is a time to really be trying to use your actions to attack as many people as possible, to hit as many people as possible. And you're really trying to increase your efficiency here, making it so that you can take out these foes as quickly as possible, because basically they're going to be trying to do to you what you were trying to do before. They're going to be trying to set up flanks. They're going to be trying to get you to come to them. They're going to be falling back so that Yeah,
especially Derek the DM. He's always like flanking us and trying to kill us.
There's a fine line, but I think that playing the characters and the creatures and the foes to their strengths is well within.
I mean, I like it.
Yeah, and I mean the more characters we can put together in a closer bunch means they're lower level. All the better for a spellcaster, because Fireball is going to just rip through them all.
Right. I mean, Fireball is made for those situations, right?
Yeah.
Because that's another thing too. It's like when you think about your class abilities, when you're choosing spells, when you're choosing feats. Think about situations where you're fighting a horde of lower level foes, like 6 or 7, versus maybe fighting just 2 on level or maybe slightly above level foes versus fighting just 1 big guy.
Yeah, 1 big baddie.
Because
Fireball goes downhill.
Yeah, Fireball, in each of those situations, Fireball gets worse and worse and worse. Because if your Fireball does, say, 30 damage, in that prior example, it's doing 180 damage. And in this example, it's only doing 30, right? So it's just not as appealing. But there's options for every character, some which are good against that single foe and some which are good against, horde. And there's also class differences, in my opinion. Melee characters, martial characters, the barbarians, the rangers, the fighters, the monks, they are very good at single target damage. They have these big attacks. They can attack a creature, do a ton of damage. The spellcasters do not have that kind of single damage potential. And so when you're fighting a big group of people, that can be really hard for a melee character because he can, she can only make like 1 or 2 attacks around just because they're all spread out. It's hard to get to them. Now they're trying to fall back to make me waste actions by getting to them. But now if, a lightning bolt or a fireball or a hailstorm comes in and just kills 2 or 3 of them straight out, right? And now the spellcaster's like, yeah, okay.
That's right.
So realize that there are encounters where your character is going to be stronger and there's going to be encounters where your character is going to be weaker, and that you need to change your tactics depending on the situation.
I like that.
So that's all we have for today. Obviously, we've got a long list of combat and tactics tips and tricks that we want to share, but we're going to have to break these up into multiple videos just because we don't want to go forever.
And if you have any ideas and comments, obviously we can review or for everyone in the community. So let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you think of these tips and tricks. If there's some great ones, we'll probably get to them, but again, I'm learning stuff from this community all the time. I read things. We have our actual plays and people leave comments, and we've been playing for 2 years, Pathfinder, and people say, didn't you know you could do this? And I'll say, I did not know that.
Big rule book.
Yeah, thick rule book. So there's always something to learn. And we're always talking about these tips and tricks. And I want to say thank you to our patrons. We've been discussing some of these combat tactics in our Discord. If you're interested in having a more real-time conversation with us about these, consider joining and supporting us. That would be incredible and awesome and amazing. And special thanks to all of our patron members, but especially our hero and champion tier members who are really helping support this channel a tremendous amount. So thank you so very much.
And make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell, because this is only part 1. We're going to get to the rest of these. So make sure you stay tuned for the other tips and tricks to help you and your party as well.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today here at Knights of Last Call. I want to thank you again for joining us. And remember, welcome to the Knights of Last Call.